Hello from Columbus, Ohio. I'm Scott Foltz alongside Jason Dye. Those stories plus the Cowboys go bear hunting while the Hogs host the Tide and a pair of Big Ten power teams go at it.
Wake Forest takes on FSU, Kentucky heads to the Magnolia State, and they're fighting like cats and dogs in the ACC. All that coming up after this. You're watching Sports Talk on CFC, so stick around.
Due to our 4-week hiatus, there won't be a Week 1 recap this week. So we're going to start this one off in the Big 12 with Baylor and OK State going head-to-head in the Cowboys' first conference game of the year. OK State is 3-0, while Baylor's only loss on their 3-1 record comes from BYU in the second week. Will they take a second loss here, or will the Bears eat the boys?
Oklahoma State, I think, is going to start off strong in this game. Defensively, that's where the question lies for Oklahoma State and Baylor, but because Baylor's got a strong defense, I think. Don't really think turnovers are going to be an issue, but it's just going to be a tough game for both schools. I think this is going to be a good test for Oklahoma State, but I do like Baylor in this one. Probably not near as entertaining as last year's Big 12 title game, but
That was a good game.
Yeah, it was. It was a very good game, but yeah, I like this. I like this game a lot actually, and I like Baylor wins a close one, 30-24.
All right. Heading south, Arkansas will host Alabama following the Hogs' hard-fought loss to Texas A&M last week. The Tide remain unbeaten after slaughtering Vanderbilt last week, in addition to Utah State and Louisiana Monroe, making this their first real test after their one-point win over Texas back in Week 2. Is Alabama for real, or will Arkansas deflate the hype?
I really think it comes down to, has Bama found an answer for the glitch at wide receiver? No Jamison Williams this year. Jamison Williams obviously went on NFL, is having a great career there, but it's going to be the KJ Jefferson show. I think he does put up a lot of yards on this Bama defense. Bama's got to find a way to get that one guy open at wide receiver, and I think they're gonna have a good day on the ground though. But I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but. I do like Bama. I think they do find the one guy that they can rely on at wide receiver, but I do like Bama 35-20.
I think they need more than one guy, though.
They do, and they've had guys step up. It's like Ohio State,
Yeah.
No JSN for Ohio State, but Amika Mbuka, Marvin Harrison Jr., Cade Stover, guys like that stepping up. I think Bama's going to have to do that, but they do need that one.
You think they have that depth?
I think, it's Nick Saban, it's Alabama. True. I mean, they figure it out. Like I said, I think Arkansas makes this one interesting. Like they did last year. They had that 42-35 loss to Bama, almost beat Crimson Tide. But I do like Bama in this one, 35-20.
It's big boy football in the Big Ten with the Iowa Hawkeyes hosting the undefeated Michigan Wolverines. The Hawkeyes' single loss was in the Cy-Hawk game in Week 2, falling 10-7 to Iowa State. Michigan's victories haven't exactly been against high-profile teams, though. Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn, and their only conference win against Maryland last week. Does Iowa have what it takes to knock off the Maize and Blue, or will Michigan keep plowing forward to Indy?
This Michigan team got tested last week against Maryland, and I'm going to be honest. Defensively, they got some great tools. Corum came up big for them on the running side. But it's Iowa's got defense. They may not have no offense, but Iowa has a defense. Michigan has a defense. This could be a low-scoring game.
Yeah.
A lot of people said don't be surprised if it's 6-3. I'm going to give both teams a little bit benefit of the doubt. I think Michigan has to get creative to figure out a way to move the ball against this Iowa defense. But Iowa will look obviously to control the clock and keep that Michigan offense off the field. That's the key. I think Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, he's going to find a way to get creative. Michigan wins 26-13.
But you think the kickers will be seeing a lot of play time in this one?
It could be, yeah.
Because it would come down to a lot of fourth down field goals.
Right, yeah. But I think Jim Harbaugh, he's smart enough, as much as I don't like the guy. He gets creative. He's going to find a way. Kirk Ferentz, he's been preparing his team all week. This could just be a slugfest for 4 quarters, but I do have Michigan getting it done 26-13.
Two unbeatens will collide in Oxford when Ole Miss hosts Kentucky. This will be the first conference game for the Rebels, while the Wildcats took down Florida in Week 2. Kentucky has been something of a sleeper team in the SEC this year, but do they have what it takes to put down Ole Miss?
I think so. Kentucky's 4-0. They haven't had a running game. They had no running game, and just been a surprise this year. They currently sit 123rd in the country with no running game. How do you play big boy football with no running game? I don't know. They found a way to get it done.
Apparently, you do it with a passing game.
Yeah, but you can't continue to run in the SEC like this and play without no running game.
You got to have both tools. In a conference like the SEC, as much as we, the Big Ten, SEC kind of rivalry that we have going on, you cannot play at the level of play in the SEC without a running game and a passing game.
Right. And polar opposite for Ole Miss. I mean, they've got the best rush average in the SEC at 281 yards a game, but it's not going to break off huge chunks of yardage against Kentucky, but they're going to mix it up with pass game too. I just think Kentucky they do get their guy back, and I think that running game starts to change here, and I think it's just enough really to knock off Ole Miss, and I like them 33-28.
Turning now to the ACC, North Carolina State will travel to Clemson for the Wolfpack's first conference game. NC State's toughest test so far has been against East Carolina, while Clemson had their hands full last week with Wake Forest, although the Tigers were able to come back in that game. Will they come back in this one, or will the Wolves take it?
I think you're looking at another good game. NC State obviously knocked off Clemson last year in a upset. I think once again the NC State passing attack does give the Clemson secondary fits as long as they can hold up against Clemson's D-line. This Clemson D-line is no joke. It is an NFL caliber line. You're going to see a lot of these guys go off the NFL. That's the key for NC State if they want to try to knock off Clemson again. But Clemson's found a ball game. They found offense where they sputtered in the last few weeks. Last week they didn't sputter. They threw up massive amounts of yards. They seem to get this train rolling. I don't look for an upset this year for NC State, but good game. Watch it. It's going to be a fight. Tigers win 30-27.
All right. Speaking of Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons travel to Tallahassee to face the undefeated Florida State Seminoles. FSU has played some stout teams, Boston College, Louisville, and LSU, while Wake Forest hasn't seen stiff competition thus far, with the exception of last week's loss to Clemson. However, the Deacons were ahead in that game at one point, 28-20, before the Tigers came back. Will Wake Forest find their groove, or will Osceola roar?
I think Osceola roars. Now, I say that with I guess my point of this game could be a shootout. I think they both have what it takes to just keep each other on their toes for 4 quarters. Florida State leads the ACC in rushing right now. Could have a big game against this Wake Forest defense through the air. Wake Forest has a good pass rush, but DBs have been torched. I just think if FSU continues to get in the backfield, could spell a disaster for Wake Forest, and I really think Wake Forest could be a surprise here and could really pull this one out if they can continue to torch and get behind FSU. But I am taking Florida State in this one, 48-40.
To say nothing of the current X factor, FSU, I think at this point, this weekend, they're playing for their entire state.
Yeah.
That whole state of Florida needs a shot in the arm after this past week's Hurricane Ian devastated the southern peninsula. And we here at Sports Talk would like to extend our thoughts and prayers to everyone affected by that terrible storm. Looking at this week's top 5, the defending national champion Georgia Bulldogs sit atop the mountain, Alabama at number 2, followed by Ohio State at 3, with the Buckeyes' arch rival Michigan right behind them at 4, and Clemson rounds out the top 5. We at Sports Talk have some thoughts going all the way back to week 1 on a few of these teams. The top 5 for week 1 was Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson, Notre Dame. Let's look at who played who. Alabama eviscerated Utah State. Georgia, we talked about earlier, destroyed Oregon, who was ranked 11 at the time. Clemson trashed Georgia Tech, and Ohio State beat Notre Dame. The number 2 team played the number 5 team. With the exception of Georgia, no other top 5 team opened the season against a ranked team. What are your thoughts on all of this? A lot of people, we're getting a lot of things of, all the Buckeyes are overrated. They didn't look that great against Notre Dame, while the other 4 ranked teams ran over their opponents. Again, the number 2 team played the number 5 team. Nobody else played a ranked team.
And somehow dropped.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
I mean, yes, Alabama put up big numbers, but they put them up against Utah State.
Right.
Not to take anything away from Utah State, but let's not kid ourselves. They're not in the same league as a team like Alabama.
No, they're not. And it's just, I don't know. It boggled my mind there. Now, when Alabama almost lost to Texas, they finally said, okay, you can't be number 1. Georgia was going out and destroying people. Ohio State clearly has destroyed people. They just obliterated that Wisconsin defense last week, but still held at number 3. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know what these guys are seeing. Maybe there's some biased opinions in there, and that's fine. But am I cool with Ohio State being 3 right now? Yeah, I'm fine with it.
3 is still playoffs as long as they can hold on to it.
And there's a lot of football to be played yet, but I just think style points are huge. Ohio State didn't exactly have style points against Notre Dame.
No.
But they did put style points up against these last couple teams that they've played, and should be credited as such. And there's still a lot of football left. I'm not worried about it, but it did kind of just boggle my mind with the whole, hey, you beat a ranked opponent and you dropped. So hopefully that changes and teams get rewarded for their wins, and that's the way it should be.
To say nothing of the fact, Michigan's, I forget where they were started the season at, but I know it wasn't 4th, and they keep rocketing up the rankings. You beat Colorado State. They beat Hawaii. They beat UConn. Now, if you beat UConn in ladies basketball, that's something. Beating UConn in football, not so much.
Right. I mean, yeah, Michigan has gotten slammed for their preseason schedule, so to speak, and it's just you shouldn't be. Every Big Ten team that's a competitor in the top 10 should have that one big game that tests them. And they started off with these tune-up games. We're going to see what Michigan's about today with Iowa. But I just really feel like they shouldn't have climbed the ranks so quickly. I mean, even putting up style points against those teams, you're expected to do that. So why should you be rewarded to move up?
Ohio State was expected to put up style points against Arkansas State and against Toledo.
Yeah, and did so. But
we weren't really expected to put style points up against Wisconsin, and I'm not sure they put a lot of style points up, but I believe I forget that score. I think the score is almost double, and that's against Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's like 52-21.
Yeah.
I mean that's saying something. So we'll see what the rest of the season brings, and we'll keep an eye on those polls.
Yes, we will. And that's going to wrap it up for this week. We truly, desperately hope to be back with you again next week. And until then, you've been watching Sports Talk on CFC. We'll see you next time.